Number 10. Lake Natron. If there's one place on Earth you should never go swimming, it's Lake Natron in Tanzania. It is one of the most dangerous bodies of water on the planet, but not for the reasons you might think. It's not strong currents that pull you under, but if you're not careful, the water might turn you to stone. First of all, it's important to note that Lake Natron is a salt lake. This means that water flows into the lake, but not out of it. The only way the water is able to escape is by evaporating. But over time, as the water continues to evaporate, it leaves behind a concentration of minerals and salt. This is very similar to the Great Salt Lake found in Utah, but Lake Natron is different for one reason. It's extremely alkaline. It has a high concentration of the chemical called natron, which is basically just a mixture of sodium carbonate and baking soda. The water's pH level is roughly 10.5 according to the Smithsonian Magazine. That's almost as high as ammonia. The result is that almost no animals are able to live in the harsh water, which can reach scorching temperatures of up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. There's only one fish that lives in the water, along with a colony of flamingos who feed on algae and breed near the shore. But how does the water turn something into stone? When migrating birds crash into the surface of the lake, they end up being chemically preserved in the water. There are entire flocks of birds that have washed ashore perfectly preserved, like the creepiest bird mummies you've ever seen. Scary to think about what would happen if a human tried to swim here. Number 9. The Devil's Pool. The Devil's Pool in Victoria Falls is one of the most popular destinations for tourists to visit along the border of Zambia and Zimbabwe. It's a natural pool of water right on the top of the beautiful Victoria Falls, which is also the largest waterfall in the entire world. There are also crocodiles lurking sometimes. This seems like a pretty horrendous place to go for a swim, but it's actually quite safe. At least it is for most of the year. There's a rock lip protruding upward that keeps visitors safe, allowing them to peer over the edge with impunity. Daredevil visitors enjoy leaning directly over the edge of Victoria Falls while swimming in Devil's Pool. However, if you visit at the wrong time of the year and decide to take a dip in the Devil's Pool, you could end up cascading very quickly over the edge. Most tourists visit between October and November. This is when the water levels are lowest. But between January and June, you're there during the wet season. And the river waters are running so strong during these months that even a brief swim in the Devil's Pool, nowhere near the edge, can result in you getting carried over the brink to your ultimate death. Number 8. Shark Alley. There are a lot of places throughout our world where sharks are frequently found. These apex predators are known to kill, but there are still people who dare to swim with sharks. But the most dangerous place to go diving where you have the highest likelihood of getting eaten by a shark is a place called Shark Alley. This is a small stretch of water that sits between two islands in South Africa. And yes, it's populated by quite a lot of sharks. Specifically, great white sharks circle both the island and spend a good amount of time inside the narrow channel. The reason there are so many great white sharks here is that from April to September, there is a massive colony of fur seals that come to hang out and do their seal stuff. The sharks are attracted to the smell of the stinky seals, and they come to hunt. If you happen to be a swimmer in the water at the time, you have a pretty good chance of getting one of your legs bitten off. Shark Alley is also a popular place for cage diving, where you can get a little too up close and personal with these predators of the ocean. Though, of course, it's definitely the place to come if you're interested in having a shark bite at you through some metal bars. Would you like to swim with sharks? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Number 7. Jacuzzi of Despair. With a name like the Jacuzzi of Despair, you know this is not a place you really want to swim. But of course, it's not actually a jacuzzi either. This is an underwater lake that was recently discovered roughly 3,000 feet or 914 meters below the surface of the water in the Gulf of Mexico. The Jacuzzi of Despair is also referred to as the hot tub brine machine. It is a crater-like pool that rises 12 feet or 3.6 meters above the ocean floor, surrounded by bright red and white mineral deposits. It's an extremely salty part of the ocean filled with dissolved methane that can kill almost any critter that ventures inside of it. If you were trying to go swimming here, you would undoubtedly meet your demise. But of course, you would probably have a hard time getting 3,000 feet, again 914 meters, beneath the surface of the ocean. That's not really something that a pair of flippers is going to allow you to do. The only people who have ever seen what goes on inside the Jacuzzi of Despair had to use a remotely operated vehicle, or submarine, to do their investigation. By now, you're probably wondering how exactly a pool came to be on the bottom of the ocean. Well, it wasn't formed overnight. It took millions of years for this enormous pool to form. As water was evaporated, giant beds of salt were left behind. Salt layers became buried, and over time the weight of all the sediments caused the ground beneath them to crack and shift, releasing oil and brine. This has worked to create a type of liquid filled with brine that's a different consistency from normal salt water at the bottom of the ocean. When animals accidentally swim into it, not realizing what's happening, they get trapped and die from exposure to the chemicals. Number 6. World's strongest whirlpool. You've probably heard the word maelstrom before, but you probably haven't heard it used to refer to a place where you should never go swimming. Interestingly enough, the word maelstrom was actually introduced by Edgar Allan Poe back in 1841. It's a Nordic word that we use today to describe something like a chaotic, bottomless pit. For example, descending into a maelstrom of madness. But the original Nordic word was used to describe a very powerful whirlpool that is still in Norway to this day. And in fact, it just so happens to be the most powerful maelstrom in the entire world. It's located just a few miles east of the small city of Bodo. It's known properly as Saltstraumen Maelstrom, and you definitely don't want to go swimming in it. In a small channel between two pieces of land, hundreds of millions of tons of water are forced through every 6 hours, with the waters raging at 22 miles per hour or 35 kilometers per hour. It's a literal maelstrom, a vortex formed where the current is at its strongest, about 15 feet or 4.5 meters deep. The maelstrom has existed for at least 2,000 years, and anyone silly enough to try and swim their way out of these waters would be sucked into a spiraling death of horrific proportions. You definitely don't want to go swimming here, no matter how strong of a swimmer you think you are. Number 5. Jacob's Well. Jacob's Well is probably one of the most dangerous places in the United States to take a dip. And yet, for the people of Texas, Jacob's Well offers a reprieve from the burning hot summer sun. The well is located in Hays County, just an hour from Austin. It's fed by an aquifer, which works by pushing water upwards through the well and feeding it into the nearby creek. Locals love swimming here, but it's actually incredibly dangerous. The well has been around for hundreds of years and has claimed its fair share of lives. But what is really so dangerous about it? The big problem is that the well is, well, deep. It's at least 100 feet or 30 meters deep, meaning that you really need to be geared up in scuba equipment to even try reaching the bottom. And what's at the bottom? There's a bunch of mysterious caves. Two of the most famous deaths happened in 1979 when two young men got caught inside the caves and drowned. The remains of one of them was found in 1981, but the other wasn't uncovered until 2000. That alone should tell you how deep and dangerous Jacob's Well is. Once you get down there, you can't tell up from down and anything can happen. It's believed that at least 9 people throughout history have died while trying to dive here, making it one of the most dangerous diving spots on the planet. Number 4. Acid pools. This next one is kind of a no-brainer, but it's so interesting that we're going to talk about it anyway. Far to the north in the country of Ethiopia lies the Danakil Depression, one of the most inhospitable places on the planet. According to the BBC, temperatures can reach upwards of 113 degrees Fahrenheit or 45 degrees Celsius. The land here is barren, and it doesn't look like the kind of place where you would want to take a beach vacation. It's about 330 feet or 100 meters below sea level in a highly volcanic area. But even for such a horrifying and destitute place, there is liquid. But you definitely would not want to swim in it. There are pools of acid all throughout this terrifying landscape, all of which are the result of geothermal activity happening beneath the ground. It's extremely briny water that produces hydrogen sulfide gas, chlorine vapor, and a whole heap of other chemicals that can choke the air from your lungs. One of the biggest lakes in the area is known by the locals as Killer Lake, because if you try to walk around it, you can see the corpses of birds and other animals that died trying to drink the water, and the carbon dioxide emissions blew into their faces. The animals literally suffocated before they can even get the water into their mouths. If you tried to swim inside of this lake, you definitely wouldn't make it out. Number 3, Bubbly Creek. One of the most dangerous creeks in the world, believe it or not, is actually located in Illinois. It's called Bubbly Creek, and it's a small branch of the Chicago River that is filled with the disgusting results of years of scraps coming out of the local meat-packing plants. That's right, there's a bunch of animal carcasses at the bottom of this creek. You might not die from swimming here, but you're definitely going to be extremely grossed out, and you might even catch a disease or two. The creek is entirely within the city of Chicago. It got its name because of the gases that bubble out of the riverbed due to the rapid decomposition of all the blood and entrails which were dumped into the water in the earliest part of the 20th century by the corrupted local meat-packing businesses. These businesses were mostly around Union stock yards, and they have since stopped dumping their trash into the water and have even filled in many parts of the creek. However, Bubbly Creek is still hugely polluted and definitely not a great place to take your kids swimming. Number 2, the River Wharf. In the lovely countryside of Yorkshire, the River Wharf is a dangerous place to go swimming, even though thousands of people flock to its bank and swim in its waters every year. It's not quite as peaceful as it looks. According to the Yorkshire Post, a young man from Bradford recently drowned in the nearby Linton Falls, sparking renewed concern that the River Wharf is no place to go swimming. It apparently has misleading depths, all kinds of hidden drops, and surprisingly strong currents that can take out poor swimmers and children alike. Also, the water here is extremely cold, even though it may not feel like it in the summer months. Sometimes this causes people to go into shock, stopping them from reaching the bank of the river and resulting in them drowning. Of course, you could probably say this about any river in the world, but this is particularly frightening for the Yorkshire locals who worry about their children going missing, all because they wanted to go for a bit of a dip. If you happen to live in England, be sure you steer clear of the River Wharf. Number 1, the Boiling Lake. The Boiling Lake is exactly what it sounds like. It is a cauldron of bubbling, boiling water that is typically shrouded by clouds of vapor. It's also the second largest boiling lake in the world, at roughly 200 feet or 61 meters across. The lake is located in the country of Dominica, only accessible via a 4-hour hike from local villages into the mountains. It's definitely a difficult trek to get there, but whatever you do, stay away from the lake. It could boil the flesh right off your bones. In fact, the local tourist organizations advise extreme caution even when stepping around the lake, as one wrong move can prove disastrous. Nobody is quite sure how deep the lake is, and most people believe that it was created because of a crack in the bottom that lets gas escape from the molten lava hidden within a volcanic crater below. The water in the lake is collected from the hills during the rainy season, and 2 small streams empty into it. The hot lava below then keeps the entire pool at a boiling point. It's beautiful to look at, but don't you dare step foot in the water. Thanks for watching. Would you dare swim in any of these locations? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like these. See you next time.